Have you ever felt like you're fighting yourself more than you're fighting life? The world doesn't have to defeat us sometimes. We defeat ourselves in the small moments, in the silent wars, in the decisions no one else sees. But what if? The greatest battlefield isn't out there, it's inside. And what if victory doesn't come from dominating, but from mastering yourself? This is where Stoicism begins, not with loud victories, but with quiet control, with discipline so deep, it reshapes everything. If you're tired of living at the mercy of moods, mistakes, and moments, this isn't just a video, it's a blueprint. We'll walk through Stoic lessons, each one a quiet rebellion, each one a piece of armor, each one a return to your power. Now breathe. Let's begin with the first. If you're ready to stop living at the mercy of moods, mistakes, and moments, this video is your start, not to be perfect, but to finally be at peace. Before we go deeper, scroll down and write in the comments, I choose stillness. Not for views, for you, as a quiet promise to start living from your center. Let me tell you a story. In a small town in Ohio, there was a boy who trained in silence. While others played, he practiced. While others gave up, he persisted. He wasn't the fastest, wasn't the strongest, but every day he showed up, quiet, relentless, invisible to the crowds. Until one day, when it mattered most, he stood where no one else could, because real strength wasn't built in the spotlight. It was forged in the dark, in the unnoticed hours, in the choices no one clapped for. And this is where we begin. Now breathe. Let's start. Let's begin with lesson 1. Because maybe we've been living wrong. Not dramatically, not recklessly, just quietly. Wrong. Wrong about what matters. Wrong about what to chase. Wrong about what actually makes us feel alive. In Los Angeles, a man buys the car he always dreamed of. Black, loud, custom plates. It turns heads at every red light, but a week later, he's still arguing with his wife, still waking up tired, still scrolling past his own life, because the car changed the driveway, not the direction. In New York, a woman hits 100,000 followers. The likes flood in. Her name trends for a night. But when she lays in bed, it's quieter than ever, because validation is not the same as connection. It's just noise, wearing makeup. In Chicago, a student gets accepted into the top university. His parents beam, his friends cheer. But inside, he's drowning, not in failure, in pressure. Because no one taught him how to breathe, only how to achieve. We weren't taught to define success. We were taught to chase it, blindly. To collect trophies we didn't choose. To perform happiness like it's a script. But Stoicism whispers something most never hear. If success costs your peace, it was too expensive. Maybe the real success is the life you don't have to escape from. Not one that looks good, but one that feels true. We chase more and wonder why we feel less. In Miami, a man wakes up at 5 a.m. Gym, cold shower, protein shake, crypto watch list. He calls it discipline, but under the motion is panic. Because if he slows down, he'll have to feel what's underneath. In Seattle, a woman fills her house with things she never needed. Glassware, mood lighting, designer rugs. It looks like peace, but it feels like pressure, because she built a space to impress others, but forgot to make it a home for herself. In Austin, a kid spends every night editing videos, not for views, but because it helps him breathe. Until one day his dad says, "That's a hobby. Focus on something real." And so he closes the laptop, and a piece of him closes too. We were trained to chase what earns applause, not what earns peace, to pursue what looks productive, even if it costs our joy. But here's the twist. Stoicism offers, just because the world claps doesn't mean you're going the right way. Sometimes, the most courageous path is the one no one sees, but you know it's yours. We don't feel stuck because we're lazy. We feel stuck because we've been living on autopilot, reacting, performing, pleasing. One day becomes 5 years, one decision becomes a lifestyle, and we wonder why nothing feels real anymore. We ask, why am I always tired? Why don't I feel excited? Why does everything feel numb? And the truth? It's not burnout, it's misalignment. We're not tired from doing too much. We're tired from doing the wrong things for the wrong reasons. With people who don't see us. We weren't made to be machines. We were made to feel, to choose, to live on purpose. But somewhere along the way, we replaced intention with expectation. Now we're living by someone else's checklist, chasing a version of life that was never ours. And that's why peace feels so far away, because peace only visits when you finally come back to who you really are. Peace doesn't leave us. We leave peace. We chase it like it's hiding. But the truth is, we keep interrupting it. Every scroll, every forced smile, every yes we said when we meant no. There's a reason silence feels uncomfortable now, because when the noise stops, we have to face what's been waiting, all the feelings we buried, all the truths we postponed, all the versions of ourselves we abandoned just to be likable. In San Francisco, a man walks into his new apartment, big windows, clean counters, a view of the skyline. He finally made it, but it feels empty, because in the climb, he became a stranger to himself. In Atlanta, a girl turns down the volume on her music, and for the first time in months, she hears her own thoughts. They don't scream, they whisper, they say, "Come back." We've been conditioned to think peace is something you earn, that it comes after the success, after the body, after the money, after everyone finally approves. But Stoicism flips it. Peace isn't the prize, it's the practice. It's not something you get, it's something you guard, because the world is loud. And if you don't protect your peace, no one else will. So we start small, with boundaries, with breath, with being honest about what hurts, with letting go of what no longer aligns. You don't have to disappear to be peaceful, you just have to stop betraying yourself, and maybe that's the most radical thing you can do. Not change your life, but return to it, consciously, deliberately, silently, because the person you've been trying to become, they're not out there. They're who you were, before the world told you what to chase. Most people don't need more motivation. They need permission. Permission to slow down. Permission to say no. Permission to want something different. Because this world only celebrates what's visible. The grind, the hustle, the numbers, the noise. But what if the real transformation happens in silence? In Boston, a man stops checking his email before bed. Not because he has it all figured out, but because he wants his mind back. He doesn't tell anyone. No post, no badge, just peace in Denver. A woman stops pretending. She no longer laughs when things aren't funny, no longer agrees just to be liked, no longer dimming her truth to stay polite. And suddenly, her world gets quieter, but clearer. In Minneapolis, a student deletes every college brochure, not because he gave up, but because he finally asked, "What do I want?" For the first time, he wasn't chasing approval. He was listening to himself. Here's what the Stoics knew. The world will always reward appearance. But your soul, it only responds to alignment. You don't need to become a new person. You just need to return to the one you were before you started performing. Before you bent to please. Before you confused success with survival. This is the quiet rebellion. Not loud, not flashy, but real. Every boundary you hold, every breath you protect, every value you live by when no one's watching, that's the work, that's the practice, that's the you've been waiting for. They taught us how to work, how to strive, how to stay busy, even when our hearts are breaking, but no one taught us how to be still. how to listen, how to protect our inner world when the outer world keeps pulling. They gave us blueprints for wealth, for status, for power, but no map for peace. In schools, we learned how to memorize, but not how to reflect. We learned how to please, but not how to say no. We learned how to aim high, but not how to come home. So we ran faster, chased louder, pushed harder. And when that didn't work, we blamed ourselves. But maybe we weren't broken. Maybe we were just misled. Because peace, it's not weak, it's not passive, it's not giving up. It's choosing every single day to stay grounded. When everything else says run, and the most powerful people are not the loudest. They're the ones who can sit in the storm and not become it. So if all you do today is breathe, say no to what hurts, say yes to what heals, and walk a little slower, you're not behind. You're just coming back to the life that was always yours. Let's move into lesson 2, because once we know we've been living wrong, the next question is, how do we make it right? We start by letting go, not of everything, just of what was never ours to hold. We weren't built to carry every opinion, to fix every situation, to chase every outcome, to control every thought, every person, every possible version of tomorrow. But that's what we've been trying to do. That's why we feel so exhausted. In Philadelphia, a woman texts first, then again, no reply. She spends the whole day replaying the silence, as if it's her fault, as if she could have prevented it. But some people's distance was never your responsibility. In Seattle, a man checks the news before bed, again in the morning, again at lunch, and wonders why his chest always feels tight, because he's trying to control things he can only watch. We think we need more strength, but what we need is clarity. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." You are not your reputation. You are not their reaction. You are not what happens. You are how you respond. And the moment you understand that, you become untouchable. Not because nothing happens to you, but because nothing owns you. There are only 3 kinds of things in this life. Things you can control, things you can influence, and things you can only accept. That's called the trichotomy of control. It sounds simple, but living it, that takes practice. Most of our stress comes from putting our energy in the wrong place. We try to control what we can only influence. We try to influence what we can only accept, and we wonder why everything feels so heavy. In Houston, a man prepares his pitch for weeks. He shows up confident, clear, composed, but they still say no, and he crashes, because he didn't just want to do his best. He wanted control over the outcome. In Portland, a woman shares something real on social media and then checks again and again and again. The likes, the silence, the reactions. She's not sharing to express. She's sharing to be seen, and that need, it owns her. This happens more than we think. We attach our happiness to things outside our reach, and we don't even realize it. But what if you drew 3 simple columns? Control, influence, accept, and started putting everything in its right place. Your sleep? Control. Your mindset? Control your relationships, influence their opinions. Accept the weather, accept. This is Stoic thinking in real life. It's not about being emotionless, it's about being clear. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. When your peace is tied to what you can control, you feel calmer. When your goals are focused on what you can influence, you stay grounded, and when your soul is no longer shaken by things you must accept, you finally become free. This is not just philosophy, it's a map. And the more you live by it, the less power the world has over you. You can do everything right, and still lose the job, still get hurt, still face silence where you hoped for love. That's not failure, that's life. And the sooner we accept that, the stronger we become. We don't break because life is unfair. We break because we expect it to be fair, because we think, if I try hard enough, I'll never have to feel this again. But Stoicism reminds us, some storms were never yours to stop, only yours to stand through. In Orlando, a man gets ghosted after 3 amazing dates. He replays every word, every text, every pause, looking for where he went wrong. But some people's absence says more about them than you. In San Diego, a mother loses her job unexpectedly. She panics, then blames herself, then cries on the kitchen floor until her child comes over and just holds her hand. That moment was real, and it reminded her she didn't lose everything. Acceptance is not giving up. It's seeing clearly. It's saying, this is what is. Now who do I choose to be in it? Because when you fight reality, you bleed twice. But when you accept what can't be changed, you free up all your energy to face what can. You become calmer. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped wrestling with the waves. You learned to float, to breathe, to trust. The world didn't get quieter. You did. And that is where serenity begins. There comes a moment when the noise gets too loud. The expectations, the disappointments, the voices, outside and inside, and something inside you finally says, enough. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about the right things. You look at the chaos around you and ask one powerful question. Is this mine to carry? That's where everything shifts. You stop answering every text immediately. You stop explaining yourself to people who only want to judge. You stop trying to control what others feel, say, or think about you, and suddenly, you're lighter. Not because life changed, but because your relationship to it did. You stop trying to fix people and start protecting your energy. You stop fearing the unknown and start trusting your ability to adapt. Control is not about being perfect. It's about being present. Influence is not about forcing outcomes. It's about leading with integrity. Acceptance is not weakness, it's wisdom. In the end, the only real control we have is over how we show up, how we breathe when things break, how we speak when no one agrees, how we stand when it's easier to collapse. This isn't about becoming untouchable, it's about becoming unmovable in who you are. So write this down or remember it every morning. I control how I show up. That is enough. And from that place, you'll be able to face anything without losing yourself. Knowing is not enough. Thinking is not enough. Even understanding is not enough. Because clarity without action still leads to chaos. That's why the Stoics didn't just write philosophy, they lived it every single day. Through habits, through practice, through small, quiet acts of discipline that made them unbreakable. So if you want to start living like a Stoic, start here, start simple. Habit 1, morning clarity. Before you touch your phone, before the noise, before the world comes knocking, sit with yourself and ask, what kind of person do I want to be today? Not what you want to do, what you want to be. Habit 2, mental pause. Before reacting, before snapping, before spiraling, take a beat. One breath, one question. Is this mine to carry? And most of the time, it's not. Habit 3, evening truth. At the end of your day, don't just scroll, don't just numb, reflect, ask, where did I stay true? Where did I stray? And what can I do better tomorrow? That's how the Stoics grew strong, not by doing more, but by doing the same things with more presence, more honesty, more courage. They didn't wait for motivation, they built momentum. One practice at a time, one thought at a time, one day at a time. Because the mind is like a path in the forest, and every time you walk the same trail, it gets deeper, clearer, easier to follow. That's what these habits are. They're the trails back to yourself. And the more you walk them, the less lost you'll feel. Imagine this: every time you speak, someone you deeply respect is listening. Every time you choose, someone you admire is watching, not to judge, but to hold you accountable to the person you said you wanted to become. This is the invisible mentor, a practice the Stoics used to stay honest, even when no one was looking. Epictetus called it having an inner guardian, a part of you that never sleeps, that sees everything and gently asks, was that the best version of you? In Detroit, a man used to cheat on his workouts, skip reps, cut corners, until one day he imagined Marcus Aurelius standing in the corner of the gym, not saying a word, just watching. He did every rep that day and hasn't cheated since. In Phoenix, a woman always said yes to please others, even when it hurt her, until she started pausing and asking what her favorite teacher would say. That pause changed her entire life. You don't need more pressure, you need more presence. Someone, real or imagined, that you respect enough to want to show up as your best. It could be a Stoic, a loved one, your younger self or your future self. Someone who sees your highest standard and silently reminds you, be that. You don't need them in the room. You just need them in your mind. In your morning, in your decisions, in your silence, because the world may never know if you took the high road, if you stayed calm, if you didn't retaliate, but you will know. And the invisible mentor will too. And sometimes that quiet integrity is the loudest power you'll ever carry. Stillness doesn't show up by accident. It's not something you find, it's something you build, like a room you return to every single day. The world is loud, so if you don't make space for stillness, the world will fill you with noise. The Stoics knew this. That's why they practiced daily rituals, tiny, repeatable acts of clarity, not for performance, but for peace. Ritual 1. Silent sitting, no phone, no music, no scroll, just you and the moment. Let the thoughts come, let them pass. Like clouds, you're not there to solve them, just to remember. You're the sky, not the storm. Ritual 2. Slow walking. Not for steps, not for speed, just for seeing. Feel your feet, hear your breath. Notice the wind, the light, the life around you. Let the walk bring you back. Ritual 3. Daily disconnect. Choose a time, turn it all off, the screen, the feed, the noise, and return to your world, the one within. You'll be amazed how loud the silence is, but also how honest. These rituals are not rules. They're reminders that before the emails, before the alerts, before the schedules and expectations, you are a human, a soul, not a system. Stillness isn't empty, it's full of truth, full of clarity, full of you. And the more you visit that room of stillness, the more it becomes home. And in a world that keeps rushing, that quiet space becomes your revolution. Who are you when no one's watching, when there's no camera, no applause, no judgment, no reward? That's the real you, not the one on display, not the one that performs, but the one who shows up in the quiet, in the unseen, in the moments that won't be remembered by anyone but you. The Stoics believed that our true character is revealed when the world is not looking, because that's when we're most honest, most raw, most free. In Charlotte, a man picks up trash in his apartment hallway. No one sees it, no one thanks him, but he does it anyway, because his standard doesn't need an audience. In Kansas City, a woman lets someone cut her off in traffic. She doesn't flip them off, doesn't honk, doesn't curse. She just breathes and lets it go. Because her peace matters more than being right. In Baltimore, a student fails an exam. No one blames him. No one knows how much pressure he's under, but he wakes up the next morning and tries again. Not for praise, just because he owes it to himself. When no one's watching, do you still speak kindly? Do you still keep your word? Do you still honor your values? That's Stoicism, not the quotes, not the books, not the theory, but the practice. The choices no one claps for, the standards no one enforces, the character you carry when there's no one to impress. Epictetus said, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." Sometimes that person needs to be you. Be the one who uplifts yourself by how you show up in the dark, because if your integrity only lives in the light, it's not integrity, it's image. True strength is who you are when the world forgets you, and you remember yourself. So tonight, ask yourself before you sleep, did I live today like someone I respect? Not perfect, not flawless, just true to the quiet code that only you can hear. And when you do that, again and again, you won't need validation, because your peace will be its own proof. We say life is short, but live like it's forever. We scroll, delay, complain, pretend. We act like there's always time to fix it, time to apologize, time to start, until one day there isn't. The Stoics had one reminder they returned to daily: memento mori. Tragedy, remember, you will die, not to scare you, to free you. In San Antonio, a man wakes up early. He doesn't rush. He doesn't check email. He sits with coffee, looks at the sky, and quietly asks, "If today was my last, would I live it this way?" That question changed how he worked, how he loved, how he showed up in New Jersey. A woman stops holding back the words. She tells her sister, "I forgive you." Not because it's easy, but because death reminded her some things matter more than pride. In Sacramento, a teacher ends every class with the same sentence: "Thank you for spending part of your life here. Ihu." He says it like a prayer because he knows every hour we share is borrowed. We spend so much time worrying what others think, waiting for the right time, regretting what already passed, that we forget the only thing we actually have is this moment. You don't need to fear death. You just need to stop fearing life, stop fearing failure, stop fearing awkward, stop fearing what might go wrong, and start trusting what might finally go right. If this was your last week, what would you stop doing? What would you start? Who would you call? What would you say? What would you forgive? And most importantly, would you be proud of how you lived it? Because death isn't the enemy. Forgetting we're alive is. So when you wake up tomorrow, whisper to yourself, "If today is my last, I will live it as me." Not perfectly, but proudly. That's the Stoic way, not to chase forever, but to be fully here while you still can. You're not lazy. You're just tired of pretending, of forcing energy, of chasing motivation that never seems to stay. We're told, push harder, now crush it, stay hungry. But what if the hunger is what's making us sick? Motivation is a trick. It shows up when it wants, leaves when you need it most, and builds a habit of only showing up when you feel like it. But the Stoics, they didn't wait to feel ready. They built rhythm, they built structure, they built strength. Not on high energy days, but on the quiet ones, the boring ones, the invisible ones. In Nashville, a man wakes up without fire, no energy, no big why, but he laces his shoes, goes for a walk, not to break a record, just to keep a promise to himself. In Miami, a single mom journals every night, not because it's fun, not because she's inspired, but because she knows, if I don't process it, I'll pass it on. In Seattle, a boy makes his bed before school. Every morning, no fanfare, no thanks, but that small win becomes the anchor that keeps him from spiraling. Motivation is a feeling, discipline is a decision. Motivation whispers, when I feel good, I'll act. Discipline answers, I act to feel good. And when you build your life around peace instead of pressure, everything changes. You stop chasing highs and start building habits. You stop waiting for sparks and start creating stability. You realize the strongest people don't look like they're winning. They look grounded, quiet, clear. Peace isn't weak, it's unbothered. It's the power to keep going without needing to be seen, without needing to be hyped, without needing to be on. Stillness is not the absence of effort, it's the presence of self. So the next time motivation doesn't show up anyway, not to prove anything, just to remember you still can. You don't need another app, another course, another podcast. You need a mirror, a space to face yourself before the day ends, before the noise wins, before your thoughts become your prison. That's what Stoic journaling is, not for content, not for clout, but for clarity. It's not about being a good writer, it's about being honest with what you felt, what you feared, what you faked, and what you forgot to feel. In Boston, a woman writes every night before bed. She lights a candle, sits in silence, and asks 3 questions. What did I do well? Where did I fall short? What can I try again tomorrow? No judgment, no filters, just honesty. And little by little, she stops running from herself. In Austin, a man writes 1 line each night, just one. Something he didn't say out loud, something that hurt, something that made him proud. He doesn't share it, he doesn't even reread it. But that single line lightens him. In Chicago, a teenager uses voice notes instead of pen. He talks to his future self, tells the truth about his fear, his anger, his shame, and hearing his own voice starts to make him feel safe again. You don't need the perfect notebook or the fancy pen. You just need a moment and the willingness to turn inward. The Stoics knew that unprocessed emotion becomes reaction, that reflection becomes response. Journaling is how you pause, how you breathe, how you catch the truth before it becomes noise. Marcus Aurelius journaled daily. He wrote not for others, but for himself, to remind his mind, to check his ego, to return to his center. Stillness doesn't come from escaping the day. It comes from meeting it, looking it in the eye and saying, I see what I did. I see what I can do better. 10 minutes, that's all it takes. 10 minutes to remember who you are, beneath the pressure. 10 minutes to untangle what you're feeling, so it doesn't become who you are. 10 minutes to tell the truth, so the lie doesn't grow louder. Because if you don't tell your story will start telling you. It will shape your choices, color your relationships, hijack your peace. So tonight, turn off the noise, open a page, or press record and meet yourself as you really are. Not perfect, just present. There's a kind of strength that doesn't show up in noise. It doesn't flex, doesn't shout, doesn't prove. But when chaos hits, it doesn't flinch. That kind of strength is built in silence, in practice, in the way you talk to yourself when life doesn't go your way. The Stoics didn't meditate to feel calm. They meditated to stay clear, to stay honest, to stay grounded. When the world tried to shake them, these were not monks. These were emperors, warriors, slaves, teachers, people with full lives, real problems. But every day, they returned inward to reset their compass, to ask, what do I truly control? In Brooklyn, a nurse stands in the hospital stairwell. She's just lost her 4th patient this week. She closes her eyes and breathes. This pain is not mine to carry alone. She repeats it until the shaking stops. In Phoenix, a man's business just collapsed. Everything he built for 5 years, gone. But instead of spiraling, he writes 1 line. I still have myself. He doesn't believe it yet. but the act of writing keeps him from breaking. In Dublin, a woman lights a candle each morning, before the kids wake up, before the emails begin. She places her hand on her chest and whispers, "I am here. I am safe. I am not this storm." Meditation is not about emptying the mind, it's about ordering it. So when life gets loud, you don't get lost in the noise. Try this. Sit still. Close your eyes. Say silently, "I don't control what happens. I only control how I meet it." Breathe. Feel it. Anchor into it. Because when you start your day from that place, you move differently. You speak calmly. You choose wisely. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These meditations, they are not about escape. They are about equipping your soul for the things no one else sees. The doubts, the triggers, the invisible battles you fight at 2 a.m. You don't have to meditate for an hour, just 3 minutes of honesty, of quiet, of remembering who you are, because the world will test you. But if you've already met yourself that morning, you won't shake, you won't shrink, you'll breathe and walk forward anyway. And that is what makes you untouchable. Let's talk about lesson 5. This one, it's not loud, but it touches everything. Your work, your love, your decisions, your inner voice. Because without emotional discipline, nothing sticks, no habit holds, no peace stays, no clarity lasts. This is the one lesson that turns reaction into power. You don't need to stop feeling. You need to stop being controlled by your feelings. There's a difference, a big one. Feeling angry? That's human. Becoming anger, that's dangerous. Feeling hurt, totally valid, but becoming a prisoner of that hurt, that's how you lose your power. The Stoics never said, "Don't feel." They said, "Don't let what you feel decide who you become." Emotion is data, but it's not always direction. It can show you where the pain is, but it doesn't have to decide where you go. In Minneapolis, a man gets cut off in traffic. His chest tightens, his fists clench. But instead of yelling, he breathes. He repeats. This moment doesn't need to become a memory. And lets it go. Not because he's weak, but because he's strong enough to choose peace. In Dallas, a woman receives a cold message from a friend. It stings, her mind spirals. She wants to respond with fire, but instead, she pauses. She writes it out, then deletes it, then calls, calmly, because she refuses to be led by her wounds. And in Oakland, a teenager is humiliated in class. His face burns, his breath shortens, but instead of exploding, he waits. He walks, he journals that night, he lets it out without hurting anyone. That's emotional discipline, not suppression, not pretending, but response over reaction. It's looking at your own storm and saying, "I see you, I feel you, but I decide what happens next." The world is full of people who never learned this, so they break things. People trust peace, not because they're evil, but because they were never taught how to hold what they feel without losing who they are. That's what Stoicism offers, a practice, a way to let the fire pass without burning the house down. Next time rage rises, name it, breathe through it, let it move through you, then act after it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Real emotional discipline is not about being cold, it's about being clear. It's the difference between hurting people and healing yourself. It's the gap between trigger and choice. It's the pause that saves relationships, careers, reputations, and your own mental health. So no, you don't need to calm down. You need to wake up to how powerful you already are. You are not the storm, you are the sky. and the sky holds it all, but is ruled by none of it. Let's talk about the three emotions. Most people are never taught how to hold anger, sadness, shame. They're not weak, they're not wrong, but left unchecked, they'll shape your life in ways you never meant. Anger turns into outbursts, sadness turns into apathy, shame turns into silence, and little by little, you forget what it means to feel something without being drowned by it. The Stoics weren't cold, they were grounded. They knew that emotions left in the dark become dangerous, but emotions brought into the light become teachers. Let's start with anger. It burns hot, it demands action, it says, something's not fair. And often it's right, but here's the truth. Just because anger is valid doesn't mean every reaction is. The Stoics taught this. Pause before you punish. Name the anger, write it down, walk it out. Say, I feel this, but I am not this. Use the anger to clarify what matters, to set boundaries, not to burn bridges. Now, sadness, the heavy one, the quiet one, the one that whispers. Why even try? We're taught to hide it, to joke over it, to scroll past it. But sadness is just unmet care, unspoken grief, unprocessed goodbye. Don't rush to escape it. Sit with it. Cry through it. Write to it. Let it move through your chest like a slow wave, and then you'll feel lighter. Because sadness isn't the enemy, suppression is. And then there's shame, the one nobody talks about, the one that says, you're not enough, you messed it all up, you're the problem. But here's the thing, shame is a liar. It confuses what you did with who you are. The Stoics didn't wallow in shame, they turned it into practice. They said, I made a mistake, now I rise from it. They reflected, then they redirected. They didn't wear their failure like a name tag. They wore it like a lesson. So what do? With anger, we pause, we breathe, we act with integrity. What do? With sadness, we feel it fully, then we create from it. What do? With shame? We name it, we unhook from it, we choose a new story. Because emotions don't make you weak, they make you human. They don't need to be your leader, they need to be your messenger. Let them inform you, but never let them own you. You are not your anger. You are not your sadness. You are not your shame. You are the one who can hold all three and still choose the path ahead. And that is what makes you powerful. Someone cuts you off. Do you chase or do you choose? Someone speaks with disrespect. Do you match their tone or do you master yours? This is the space, the sliver of silence between what happens to you and what comes from you. The reactive mind says, they did this, so I must do that. The responsive mind says, they did this, now I decide what happens next. That space is freedom, and most people, they never find it because they were never taught that between trigger and action, there is choice. In Los Angeles, a man walks out of a meeting. He just got blamed for something he didn't do. His fists are clenched, his jaws tight. His pride is screaming, but before he reacts, he breathes, he walks, he reminds himself, my response is my respect. In Atlanta, a woman gets criticized online. A stranger picks her apart. She wants to clap back, to fight, to win, but she logs off instead. Not because she's soft, but because she knows. Peace is too expensive to trade for noise. In Detroit, a teen is mocked by his coach. He's boiling inside. His friends tell him to act out, but he pauses. He plays harder. He uses the pain as fuel, not fire. This is responding without reacting. It's not about being passive, it's about being powerful in a way that doesn't depend on what they do. The Stoics didn't preach control. They practiced pause. They asked, is this worth my energy? Will this matter in a week? Does this choice reflect who I want to be? You don't need to clap back. You don't need to win every argument. You need to win yourself, your calm, your clarity, your character. Because the moment you react, you hand the other person your power. But when you respond, you return to center, to purpose, to peace. So next time something hits you, don't flinch. Pause, breathe, own the space between the world and your next move. Because the ones who last aren't the loudest, they're the ones who can hear chaos and still speak with choice. And that choice is what separates noise from wisdom. We grow up thinking, strength is loud, strength is fast, strength is dominant, but the more you live, the more you realize. Real strength is often the quietest thing in the room. Anyone can scream, anyone can fight, anyone can post a comeback, but the ones who are truly strong, they don't need the spotlight because they've already mastered themselves. In Brooklyn, a man gets insulted by his own brother. Old wounds, sharp words, years of buried tension. But he smiles, walks away, not because he's scared, but because he's done performing pain. In Birmingham, a woman is being left out, friends whisper. Plans happen without her. She could lash out, play games or gossip. Instead, she chooses to stay kind because her peace isn't on the table. In Seattle, a young athlete gets benched unfairly. He's better than the starter. Everyone knows it, but he keeps showing up, keeps working. No ego, no noise, because he's not chasing proof. He's practicing character. This is what the Stoics knew. True power isn't about control over others. It's about control over yourself. Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome. He could have had anything, but he lived simply, wrote daily, fought for clarity over comfort because he understood. If you can't master your mind, you'll never master your life. Being calm isn't weak. It's discipline, it's courage, it's the decision to not let chaos make a home inside you. You don't need to react, you don't need to defend, you don't need to win every moment. You just need to remain steady, because real strength isn't proven. It's carried in how you walk, in how you breathe, in how you treat people when no one's clapping. Stillness is not silence. Stillness is controlled power, and when you build that, people feel it without you saying a word. So don't chase attention, don't chase applause. Build quiet power and let it speak through everything you do. You've come this far. But there's one weight that still follows most of us. It's not outside, it's inside. This is lesson 6, and it's about the kind of suffering we create ourselves. Pain is part of life. But suffering, that's something we add a harsh comment. That's pain. Repeating it for weeks in your mind, that's suffering. A mistake, that's pain. Beating yourself up every day after, that's suffering. The Stoics understood this difference, and they taught one thing that breaks the cycle. You suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca. Most people don't suffer once, they suffer twice, first in the moment, then again in memory. In projection, in overthinking in Boston, a man gets passed over for a promotion. That's real pain, but what hurts him more is the story that follows. I'm not good enough. I'll never be respected. I knew I shouldn't have tried. He doesn't just grieve the moment. He relives it until it becomes a belief. In Philadelphia, a woman gets ghosted after opening her heart. She feels the sting. But what stays longer? The loop in her head. Something's wrong with me. I push people away. I shouldn't trust anyone again. The event passed, but the story keeps bleeding. The Stoics didn't deny pain, they just refused to add to it. They asked, what's mine to carry? What's mine to release? Suffering multiplies when we overthink, personalize, attach meaning that isn't true. The Stoics practiced the opposite. They trained their minds to come back to what's real. Marcus Aurelius would say, you always own the ability to have no opinion. Imagine that. No opinion about the insult. No opinion about the silence. No opinion about what hasn't even happened yet, because when you remove the opinion, you remove the wound. You can't stop pain, but you can stop the story. That makes it permanent. Try this. Next time something hurts, feel it fully. Breathe through it. Ask, what am I adding? If the answer is shame, fear, resentment, you don't have to hold that. Let the moment hurt, then let it pass like a wave, because it will. You are not the thing that happened. You are what you do after. And the most powerful choice is to let it end. With you, pain happens, but what we do with that pain, that's what writes our story. Most people, they pass it on. They don't mean to, but they do, because it's easier to project than to process. Because we were taught to look strong, not to be whole. Hurt people, not because they're bad, but because no one taught them how to hold their hurt without handing it to someone else. In Houston, a father comes home after a brutal day. He says nothing, but the tension fills the whole room. His son asks one innocent question and gets the full force of a storm that had nothing to do with him. The pain wasn't ended, it was transferred. In Charlotte, a woman is rejected again. She feels unseen, unwanted. Instead of grieving, she closes off, builds walls, pushes good people away before they get close. Because to her, love now means danger. In Chicago, a team leader gets embarrassed in a meeting. He doesn't speak up. But for the next week, he micromanages, controls, criticizes, because that one moment still owns him. Pain becomes a pattern when we don't pause, when we don't reflect, when we don't let go. The Stoics understood this. They knew, if you don't end the pain, you'll pass it. To your partner, to your children, to your team, to your future. So they trained for it. They journaled. They sat with it. They asked, where am I reacting from wounds, not wisdom? Who pays for what I haven't healed? Emotional discipline is not just about you. It's about the people you touch, your silence, your tone, your energy, your decisions. They all ripple. So when you pause instead of punish, you're not just saving your peace, you're protecting theirs. This is not about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about tracing the pain back to its source and choosing, this stops with me. Next time something hits, before you type, before you shout, before you push it forward, pause, breathe, ask, does this hurt end with me, or does it continue through me? That question can save years of damage. Not every pain was your fault, but how you carry it. That's yours now. You don't have to bury it. You don't have to fake it. You just have to meet it, so you don't become it. Write it out, cry it through, walk it off, sweat, pray, breathe, but don't project. Because your pain deserves your attention, not your audience. This is what real strength looks like. Not being untouched, but being untransferred. Not breaking others, but breaking the pattern. So when the old pain rises again, say it to yourself, softly, but firmly, it ends with me. And mean it, because that is how healing begins. Life pulls you in every direction. People, screens, pressure, noise, and slowly you start to leave yourself, not physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, until one day, you look in the mirror and see a stranger. That's why the Stoics did something powerful. They built a reset, a way back home, a return to center, not once a year, not once a crisis hits, but daily, because they knew you don't find peace by accident. You return to it on purpose. In Austin, a woman starts her morning in silence. She lights a candle, writes one sentence, I am here. It sounds simple, but it anchors her before the world tries to pull her away. In Denver, a man ends every day the same way. He stands by his window, places one hand on his chest and repeats, I am not what happened today. I am what I do next. That one moment saves him every night. You don't need hours, you don't need rituals, you just need a moment to come back to yourself. The Stoics had many ways to reset: morning reflection, evening journaling, silent sitting, asking, what's mine to control? What can I let go? They made stillness a skill, a discipline, a daily return. Marcus Aurelius wrote every day to himself, not to impress, but to remember, to clarify, to choose again. We forget who we are when we stop returning to quiet, to honesty, to the truth that isn't reactive, but rooted. So try this: when you feel lost, pause. Place your hand on your chest and whisper, I am still here. Not perfect, not fixed, but present. And that is enough to begin again. You don't need to be unbreakable. You just need to be returnable to yourself, to your breath, to what truly matters. Pain will pull you away. Doubt will pull you away. The world will keep shouting that you're not enough, but every time you return, you rewrite the story. You remind yourself, I'm not who I was when I got hurt. I'm who I become when I heal. That's the Stoic reset. Not a change in the world, but a choice to come home. And every time you do, you suffer a little less, you settle a little deeper, and your life starts to sound like peace. You've made it this far, but now it's time to level up. This is Lesson 7, and it's not about leading others yet. It's about leading yourself. First, everyone wants to lead, to be respected, to inspire others, to build impact. But very few learn to lead themselves first. We think leadership is about position, about title, about volume. But real leadership begins in the quiet, in the unseen, in how you show up when no one is watching. Because if you can't lead yourself, you'll end up leading from ego, from wound, from fear. In San Francisco, a young manager has her first team. She's confident, smart, but inside insecure. Every disagreement feels like disrespect, so she gets louder, more controlling, more defensive, until one day her best person quits, leaves a note. I didn't need a boss, I needed a leader. In Toronto, a father is raising 2 boys. He wants to teach them calm, not kindness, strength, but he never sleeps, never reflects, carries his stress like armor. And one day, his son yells back, same tone, same words, same wound. He realizes, I didn't teach him that. He watched me do it. We lead people, not by what we say, but by who we are. The Stoics knew this. That's why they started every day with themselves. They didn't just plan schedules, they planned mindsets. They checked their ego. They asked, who do I want to be? Before I speak, before I act, before I lead anyone else? Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome, but every morning he wrote to himself about patience, about compassion, about staying grounded, because he knew, if you can't lead your mind, you can't lead the world. So ask yourself, when I'm tired, can I still lead with grace? When I'm triggered, can I still lead with clarity? When I'm unseen, can I still lead with integrity? Leadership is not a moment, it's a habit built every morning, tested every night. Start small. Lead yourself out of bed, out of negativity, out of drama, out of reaction. Lead yourself into stillness, into honesty, into intentional action. Because people feel energy, they follow presence. They don't care what you say until they feel who you are. So if you want to lead others, first ask, would I follow me today? And if not, that's your work. Not to be perfect, but to be worth following. That is where all true leadership begins. You can't demand respect. You earn it, and not with loud words, but with quiet discipline. Anyone can make a promise, but not everyone keeps it. Anyone can show up once, but not everyone shows up every single day. The Stoics didn't talk much about charisma. They talked about consistency, because the world listens, not to what you say, but to what you keep doing when no one's watching. In New York, a man opens his shop at 6 a.m., rain, snow, holidays, same hour, same pace, no shortcuts, no drama, and people trust him, not because he's charming, but because he's dependable. In Copenhagen, a teacher stays late every Thursday, not for a paycheck, but because 3 students stay after class just to feel safe. She doesn't post about it. She doesn't ask for praise. She just shows up, and that is why they listen to her. People don't follow perfection. They follow presence. They follow people who do the work, especially when it's not exciting, when it's not convenient, when it's not easy. Discipline earns respect because it proves something. That you can be trusted, that you're stable, that you're not led by mood but by mission. So how do you build that kind of respect? You make discipline visible, not performative but real, not by being loud but by being clear. Clear about your boundaries, your energy, your values, your yes, your no, your standard. The Stoics lived by this. They practiced temperance, balance. They didn't drink too much, didn't speak too much, didn't move from impulse. They moved from principle. You could feel it in how they carried themselves. Not showy, but solid. Not aggressive, but grounded. Not impressive, but reliable. Discipline isn't about being rigid. It's about being rooted. Rooted in who you want to be, even when life pulls you in 100 directions. So next time you want respect, don't ask for it. Don't chase it. Just be it. Be the person who follows through, who sets the tone, who leads by example, not by demand. Because when your discipline speaks for you, you won't need to convince anyone. They'll feel it. They'll trust it. And most of all, they'll follow it without you saying a word. True strength isn't loud, it doesn't show off. It doesn't need the room to know it's in it. The strongest people, you feel them, without them saying a word. In Los Angeles, a man is mocked in a meeting. Everyone laughs. He smiles, listens, thanks the person, then gives one of the best answers of the day. Not to prove himself, but to stay himself. In Atlanta, a woman walks away from a fight. Someone yells after her, "What? Too weak to argue?" She doesn't turn back, doesn't bite, just keeps walking. Because strength is not proving, it's preserving. The Stoics lived this every day. They knew. Ego wants recognition. Wisdom wants alignment. Ego speaks to be seen. Wisdom speaks to be understood. Ego reacts to protect. Wisdom pauses to reflect. And the line is thin. That's why Marcus Aurelius wrote daily. He didn't want to become his power. He wanted to stay with his principles. He reminded himself, "You are just a man, not a god, not your role, not your status." Because the moment you start believing the pedestal, you stop growing. True strength isn't about not having an ego. It's about knowing how to handle it, like a sword. If it's not sheathed with awareness, it cuts you. So how do we model strength? Without ego? You keep quiet when others boast. You stay grounded when others fly. You speak clearly when others shout. You choose truth over praise. You protect peace over proving points. You become the person who doesn't need to win every argument, who doesn't need to be right all the time, who doesn't need credit to keep building. In the modern world, that's rare, that's powerful, that's stoic. And make no mistake, this isn't passivity. This is control, self-control, emotional mastery. Principle over impulse, because sometimes not responding is the highest response. Not engaging is how you lead. Think of the leaders you trust, the mentors you admire, the people you'd follow into fire. It's not the loud ones, it's the centered ones. The ones who look like they could break you, but choose to build you. The ones who know they can destroy, but choose to develop. Because real strength is the power to hurt, without the desire to. That's what the Stoics meant by strength without arrogance, wisdom without pride. So here's your daily check before you flex your power. Ask, is this me or my ego? Before you correct someone, ask, is this to help or to be right? Before you speak, ask, will this make me bigger or just louder? Every time you choose presence over pride, you win a battle the world doesn't even see. And that is the kind of victory that builds empires, not out there, but in here. Everyone says, be resilient. But what does that really mean? To bounce back, to push through, to keep going? Yes, but that's not the whole truth. Because real resilience isn't just about moving on, it's about coming back wiser. And most people, they don't know how to do that. They either pretend it didn't hurt, or they stay stuck in what hurt them. But the Stoics, they had a different way. They didn't avoid the pain. They didn't dramatize it. They used it. In Detroit, a man loses his job. His identity is wrapped in it. He spirals for days, but instead of numbing out, he sits down, opens his journal, writes, I lost my role, not my worth. That line becomes his anchor. In Lisbon, a woman gets ghosted again. Instead of blaming herself, she hikes alone, writes 3 truths in her phone. I am still lovable. I am still worthy. This is a redirection, not a rejection. That's resilience. Not skipping the pain, but processing it. With power, the Stoics called it turning obstacle into opportunity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, what stands in the way becomes the way. Meaning, the pain isn't the end. It's the path if you use it right. Resilience means facing what happened, feeling it deeply, learning from it, and returning to yourself stronger. Most people, they only bounce back to where they were, but true Stoic resilience takes you higher. You don't return bitter, you return brighter. You don't carry scars like weight, you carry them like wisdom. Try this. When something breaks you, ask, what is this trying to teach me? Who do I become if I stay open? How can I turn this into fuel? Because resilience isn't about being tough. It's about being soft enough to stay honest and strong enough to move anyway. You cry, you write, you pause, you breathe, then you stand again. Not because it didn't hurt, but because you're ready to rise. The secret, you don't have to bounce back quickly. You just have to come back truthfully, fully, one breath at a time. That's the Stoic way, not cold, not fake, but deeply alive and unshakably clear. The world breaks everyone, but not everyone uses the break. You will, because you now know. Resilience doesn't mean being unbroken. It means building stronger from what cracked you. Failure, the word we fear the most, the moment we try to hide, the thing we use to measure our worth when we forget how strong we actually are. But the truth is, failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of it. It's the training, it's the teacher, it's the fire that burns off what isn't real. The Stoics never avoided failure. They welcomed it because they knew. You can't build character without falling first. In Austin, a man launches his first business. He loses money, gets rejected. Family stops believing, but every night, he writes 3 things. What did I learn? What will I do better? Why am I still in this? That routine saves his mind and his mission. In Boston, a teenage girl applies to her dream school. She gets rejected. Her friends get in. She wants to hide, delete her socials, disappear. But her father says one line, "This is not who you are. It's just where you are right now." And something clicks. She applies again to more schools, better fit, wider dreams. She doesn't shrink, she expands. That's what failure can do when you face it. The Stoics said, don't waste your failure. Use it, study it, ask it questions. Not, why did this happen to me? But, what is this trying to build in me? Because failure shows you your blind spots, your patterns, your fear of being seen as human. But if you stop running, it becomes your fuel. Here's how Stoics flipped failure. They journaled it, clearly. They named the emotion, honestly. 3, they re-engaged the process, with clarity. They acted again, without shame, because the only real failure is letting the moment define you instead of develop you. So next time you fall, say this: I am still here, I am still learning. I am still moving. And mean it. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be in motion. You don't need approval. You just need inner permission. You don't need to win now. You just need to keep building, because every person you admire failed hard. More than once, but what made them great wasn't the moment they won. It was the moment they refused to quit. So go fail. Fail better, fail forward, then get up, wiser, calmer, hungrier, because you are not what broke you. You are what you built. After it, the world tells you, toughen up, harden your heart, don't feel so much, because if you stay soft, you'll be hurt, you'll be used, you'll fall behind. But the Stoics, they never told you to harden. They told you to be clear, to stay rooted, to protect your peace without losing your heart. In Dallas, a man gets cheated on. Friends say, never trust again. Shut down, move on, ghost her. But he doesn't. He grieves, he writes, he forgives, not for her, but to free himself. He stays soft, but stronger. In Oregon, a woman in a toxic job is gaslit daily. She wants to fight, to scream, to burn it all down. But instead, she gets quiet, saves money, applies elsewhere, sends one calm resignation letter. No drama, just power, in control. Softness is not weakness, it's stability. It's the ability to feel fully and still choose wisely. The Stoics didn't build walls, they built inner structure. They stayed open, but discerning, kind, but grounded, present, but not available to everyone. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike the one who wronged you." That's not about passivity, that's about mastery. You don't become cold to stay safe. You become clear, so your energy isn't wasted on trying to prove or defend. Staying soft means you feel things. You care, you cry, sometimes you speak with grace, but you still hold boundaries like steel. The world is hard, but that doesn't mean you have to be. It means you have to be conscious about where you give your time, your love, your trust. Here's the practice. Pause before reacting. Name what you feel. Breathe until it lands. Respond with truth, not trauma. Choose softness, not because you're weak, but because you're free. You don't need to match the world's chaos. You need to return to your center. That is how you remain unbreakable without becoming untouchable. So when the world tries to turn you hard, remember, you can be soft and still stand. You can be gentle and still guard your peace. You can be open and still walk away. And when you do, you'll realize Stoicism isn't about being numb. It's about being so clear inside that the world can't steal your light. We've been taught to want more, to chase more, to prove more. But in the noise of more, we lose ourselves. Our time, our clarity, our joy. The Stoics didn't live for more, they lived for enough in a world chasing status. They chose simplicity not as poverty, but as power. Because simplicity isn't lack. It's clarity, it's knowing what to keep and what to release. In Brooklyn, a man deletes half the apps on his phone. He stops scrolling, starts walking, not because it's trendy, but because his mind was begging for room in Seattle. A woman ends a toxic friendship, not with drama, but with decision. She chooses less noise. More peace in Denver. A couple sells their big house, moves into a small one. They cook more, talk more, sleep better. Not because they failed, but because they finally understood. Success is not what fills the space, it's what fills the heart. The Stoics weren't minimalist to be aesthetic, they were minimalist to be awake. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." Simplicity is a superpower because it frees your energy. No more chasing likes, no more proving yourself to people who don't see you, no more collecting things that distract you from the one thing that matters, who you're becoming. Try this. Delete what drains you. Say no to what shrinks you. Wear the same outfit more often. Unfollow the noise. Ask daily, what can I let go of to feel more free? The more you remove, the more you return to breathe, to presence, to truth. You don't need more. You need less of what doesn't align. Simplicity isn't boring. It's brave. It's saying, I choose depth over drama, stillness over status, freedom over approval. It's the strength to walk away from chaos, from clutter, from what no longer matches your peace, so no, you don't need another hack. You need less distraction. You don't need another item. You need more inner space. This is how the Stoics lived, focused, rooted, unbothered, free. And you can live that way too, not by having everything, but by holding on to only what matters. Needing less doesn't mean having nothing. It means no longer being ruled by everything. Most people think freedom means having more money, more things, more options. But real freedom isn't external, it's internal. It's waking up without an urge to prove, without a need to compare. Without that hole inside, that keeps pulling you toward things that never satisfy. In New Jersey, a woman cancels 2 subscriptions, unfollows 50 accounts, cleans out her closet. She feels lighter, not because she lost something, but because she let go of what was taking too much. In Melbourne, a man quits a high-paying job. His friends call him crazy, but he's never been more clear. Because now, he has time to see his kids, to cook, to breathe, to live. And what he realized was this: needing less doesn't make you poor, it makes you free. The Stoics practice this daily. Seneca wrote, "If you wish to be wealthy, do not add to your money but subtract from your desires." They didn't glorify poverty, they honored perspective. They knew, the more you want, the more you suffer. But when you need less, you gain more space, more clarity, more ownership of your time and energy. Try this. Go one day without buying anything. Spend an hour with no phone. Write down 5 things you once thought you needed, but now realize you don't. Ask yourself, what if nothing is missing? Because most of our stress comes from the gap between what is and what we think should be. You don't close that gap by grinding harder. You close it by letting go. Let go of expectations. Let go of status games. Let go of the belief that more will fix the emptiness. Simplicity is not about restriction, it's about redirection. Back to what truly matters. The less you need, the more you can give, the more you can feel, the more you can breathe. So when the world tells you, you need this to be happy, you can pause, smile and say, I don't need more, I just need to remember who I am. Letting go is one of the hardest things we'll ever do, because part of us believes if we let go of that person, that role, that dream, we'll lose a piece of ourselves. But the Stoics knew the truth. Nothing is truly yours except your mind. Everything else is on loan, temporary, and if you grip it too tight, it starts to own you. In Philadelphia, a woman ends a 5-year relationship. She's not angry, she's just tired of carrying both hearts. She lets go, and the silence feels like death. But after the silence came space, and in that space, she heard her own voice again. In Miami, a man quits a job that made him rich and hollow. He feared he'd lose his identity, but after a few weeks, he remembered he never wanted money. He wanted meaning, and now he's building it on his terms. Letting go doesn't mean losing yourself. It means returning to yourself. The Stoics practiced detachment, not as apathy, but as clarity. They asked, is this thing or this person helping me become who I'm meant to be? If not, they blessed it and released it, because when you hold on out of fear, you shrink. But when you let go from wisdom, you expand. Here's how to let go, the Stoic way. Name what you're holding, not vaguely. Name it fully. Write why you've kept it. Security, ego, fear, habit, tree. Ask, who am I without this? If the answer is clearer, freer, stronger, that's your direction. Letting go is not a loss, it's a rebirth. It's not the end, it's a return to your values, to your peace, to your inner ground. So if something is weighing on you, a habit, a belief, a connection, a version of you that no longer fits, don't rush, but don't cling, sit with it, thank it. And when you're ready, release it gently, like a leaf in the wind, because you don't lose yourself. By letting go, you lose yourself. By holding on too long to something that's already gone. So breathe, unclench, stand still, and remember, you are not what you hold. You are who you return to when you let it go. You made it through the noise, through the doubt, through the discomfort of looking inward instead of outward. You didn't just learn about Stoicism, you practiced it. You remembered that peace is not a personality, it's a practice. That control starts within. That your worth was never up for debate. That your response is always your responsibility. And above all, that you don't need more to be enough. You just need to return to who you've always been. So before you close this, pause and breathe. In through the nose, out through the truth. Then scroll down and comment this. I choose inner freedom. Do not for me, for you, to anchor this moment, and because the world will keep shouting. But now you carry something deeper, calmer, stronger, unbothered. And when it gets loud again, you'll know exactly what to do. You'll pause. You'll remember. You'll return. Because Stoicism, it's not a rule book, it's a rhythm. And now it lives in you.